So this is rental car number 33, and it's the 2017 Dodge Grand Caravan GT. The GT is actually the most expensive model that Dodge makes. This also comes in the SE, which goes at about $25,000, the SXT, which goes for about $31,000, and then of course the GT is the most expensive at about $35,000. I really like the look and feel of this minivan. I think it looks a little bit more streamlined than most of the minivans out there, and it rides very low, so getting in and out of the vehicle is super comfortable. Gas mileage isn't great, 17 in the city and 25 on the highway, but that's pretty standard in class when it comes to minivans these days. Just for example, my favorite minivan is the Kia Sedona. That gets 18 in the city and 25 on the highway, and the Honda Odyssey gets 19 in the city and 25 on the highway. Get back to talking about the Grand Caravan and jump inside so you can kind of get a feel for the features that come along with this car. I like how this looks, and it certainly is easy to use, but it does feel a little bit out of date to me. Take a look at the key fob. You do actually have to insert this and turn it to start the car, and there is actually a real key hidden inside the remote, which I thought was kind of neat. Overall, the buttons work well. It has a nice weight to it. I wouldn't call this the best key fob out there, but I don't think it's a deal breaker. But this old-fashioned pedal parking brake is a deal breaker for me. I just find these to be super annoying. And I really wish Dodge would follow the modern trend of making these just an electronic button somewhere on the dash. Alright, but let me stop being so negative, and let's take a look at the steering wheel. Here on the left-hand side are the buttons you use to navigate through some of the entertainment features. And then on the right-hand side, these are the cruise controls, which are actually really nice to work with. And then up above the steering wheel, you have the gauge cluster with a pretty nice sized digital screen right in the center. I really like the way this looks. It looks very similar to the Dodge Charger. You have this kind of aggressive feel to it. And the digital screen in the center is actually a nice size. Not the best one out there, but it is organized in a way that makes it very easy to find everything that you need. And shifting sort of to the right, the gear shift is up here on the dash. Feels kind of clunky, and honestly, I'm not a huge fan of the location. Just kind of feels out of place, and I think you can see that here when you're looking at the whole center console right here. Everything seems really well designed, and the gear shift just seems kind of thrown in there. But let's take a look at the center display. It's a nice size, and the colors are pretty nice, but it does feel kind of out of date. I feel like this could use a really nice update, and I gotta warn you, connecting your Bluetooth phone to this thing is damn near impossible. It's got tons of different steps, and you got to do it all through voice commands. It's a huge pain in the butt. And be warned, this isn't really a touchscreen. I mean, you can't touch it, but most of the menus you navigate through these two columns of buttons on the left and the right side. Switching your gaze a little bit lower, the climate controls are right here. They're actually pretty nice. I'm a big fan of having digital readouts right there so you know what the temperature is in the car. And most of the buttons are pretty easy to use. I guess my only major criticism is that these are not really that easy to reach. You kind of have to lean forward in the driver's seat to touch them, which is kind of a pain. And then shifting your gaze a little bit further down, there is this nice storage space right here, which I think would fit most cell phones. Mine's a little large, so it didn't fit quite well. This is where I ended up keeping my phone most of the drive. And I do kind of like that there's a hideable, sort of collapsible lid on top, and then also some power ports hidden right down here. There's also two really nicely placed drink holders right here, and then another storage area a little bit further back that's also collapsible and has the built-in change tray right there. And then over on the passenger side, you actually get two glove boxes. One up here on top, which is a pretty deep, kind of cavernous spot to keep things, and then you get the standard glove box on the bottom, which is kind of disappointingly small, but big enough to keep your owner's manual and a couple other odds and ends. All right, let's jump back to the driver's seat for a second. You get this extra window control right here that allows you to control the very furthest back windows by your third row seats. If that doesn't make sense, here they are located all the way back here. You just kind of open it up just about 2 or 3 inches to get some nice ventilation into the vehicle. Most of the minivans have gotten away with this feature, and I think that's a shame because it's a really nice way to get some ventilation into the car without having to deal with the wind blowing through the windows. All right, now let's jump back into the driver's seat and look up. And there are some electronic controls up here on the roof that help you control all the doors in the vehicle. So you can push a button and open the back door, for example. Or you can push another button and open one of the side doors. Personally, I love this feature. It's super useful and pretty fun to play around with. And by the way, if you haven't noticed this before, all these features are also available on the key fob. And then one last thing before we jump in the back seat. Unfortunately, the Grand Caravan does not come with blindside detection on the side mirrors. I'm actually kind of disappointed with this. I would think with a minivan, because it's a little bit longer, this would be standard, but hopefully Dodge will add this in the next couple of years. All right, so let's jump in the back and take a look. I actually really like it back here. The leather seats are super nice, and you do get a lot of room, so maneuvering between these seats is actually pretty comfortable. Also, if you shift your focus up, you'll see that on the ceiling there are a bunch of different storage compartments up top, along with some climate controls. Now, the blue tape you're seeing is just because this is a brand new vehicle, but if you look, these storage compartments are actually pretty big. I think you could get an iPad up here, some books, and some other odds and ends. And then I really like that there are dedicated climate controls up here, so that you can adjust the temperature in the back if you're a passenger without having to call up front and ask that things be adjusted for you. And as I mentioned before, I think your passengers are going to be pretty comfortable. There's some decent legroom back here. This is me in the captain's chair with the passenger seat pushed back pretty far. I'm 6 feet tall and I still had plenty of room. Surprisingly, I actually have even more legroom when I sit in the third row seat. There's a good 6 to 8 inches between my knees and the back of the captain's chair, which is pretty nice. And then speaking of pleasant surprises, there's actually power ports right here. This is the driver's side of the car, right by the sliding door. You get your normal DC outlet, and then you also get a 3-pronged power port, which is pretty fantastic. And another nice surprise are these hideaway sort of sunscreens that slide up on all the windows in the back. It doesn't look like much in the video, but when I put these up on a sunny day, it actually blocks a lot of the sunlight, which is great. And you know if you have small kids that these are a must. I mean, I usually buy stuff to install in my cars. It's just fantastic that this comes standard. All right, now I want to show you how to collapse the seats in the back. First, you got to go back up to the driver's seat and push the seat all the way forward using the electronic controls. This actually takes a long time, and I'm kind of disappointed there isn't an automatic button to do it. But once you got the seat in the right place, then you got to go down here to the floor and pull up on this tab to open up the compartment where the seat is going to collapse into. It's actually pretty easy. I was able to do it with one hand while I was holding the camera. Then all you got to do is pull up on this one lever, push it down into the floor, and then collapse the lid on top, and voila, you've just made the seat completely disappear. I absolutely love this option. So that's the captain's chairs, and the third row seat all the way in the back also collapses. And to do that, you have to look in the very back of the vehicle. But just as a quick tangent, there's actually a lot of storage space back here. It goes down pretty far, and I think you could easily get a ton of stuff, suitcases, strollers, all that good stuff back here. All right, but let me show you how to collapse these seats. It's actually really easy. I'm doing this one-handed. You pull up on these tabs to make the headrests disappear, and then you have to pull on 3 different cords really lightly, just a gentle tug, and you can get these seats to sort of collapse without really much physical effort at all. And I really do mean that. It kind of looks like I'm pulling really hard on the video, but really I'm just giving it a gentle tug, and these seats just sort of fall down all by themselves and collapse all the way into the floor. And when you do this, you're left with just an enormous space to store all kinds of things. All right, now that we've looked in the front and the back of the vehicle, I want to talk about actually driving this car. It was actually pretty nice. I was expecting it to drive kind of like a big Dodge truck, but it drives much more like their small sedans. It's really low to the ground. You go around corners, you feel comfortable. It accelerates nicely. It's by no means the best driving minivan I've ever had, but it is really pleasant to drive, and overall, I just had a really good experience driving this car for about 3 days. All right, so that's the 2017 Dodge Grand Caravan GT. After 3 days in this car, I think I'm going to give this one 4 stars. This is a great minivan. It could just use a couple of tech upgrades, and then it would easily be a 5 out of 5. All right, that's it. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave me a comment. I promise I'll respond. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll join me next time when I rent my 34th rental car.